Thank you. Dear colleagues, this is the 12th lecture of Onomastics Online. And you know, one of the main purposes of this series is to emphasize the interdisciplinary nature of dealing with names. And also to provide a forum where experts from all over the world can meet and share their knowledge on names regularly and during the whole year. That's why we had speakers from Brazil, Japan, and the United States, England, Germany, and so on. Speakers from the fields of critical geography, spatial cognition, cognitive linguistics, and even second language learning and teaching, besides linguistics in general and onomastics. And these lectures dealt with several types of names and approached name usage from different perspectives. Today's speaker is going to talk about a specific aspect of place names. How is it possible and what are the features of using toponyms as brands? I'm very happy to welcome Sungjae Choo from Korea, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And I'm also glad to welcome the chair of this event, my dear colleague Peter Jordan, Vice President of ICOS. And I'm very sorry, but unfortunately I have to leave at 4 o'clock Central European time. So now I would also like to remind you that our next speaker is going to be Emilia Aldrin from Sweden in May, who is going to talk about names as resources for identity construction. That's all. And now the floor is yours. I wish a wonderful time for us.
Yes, thank you, Katalin. And a cordial welcome to all of you also from my side. And thank you for your interest in our lecture series and in this specific lecture today on place names as brands. Well, place names can have the additional quality of being positive or negative brands. They can assume the quality of negative brands almost overnight after a disaster, after a natural disaster, for instance, as we had it with Fukushima, or after a nuclear catastrophe, as we had it with Chernobyl, or by a pandemic, as we had it with Wuhan in China, with Bergamo in Italy, or with Ischgl in Austria, this tourist resort. And when politicians say that we have to avoid a second Wuhan, a second Chernobyl, a second Bergamo, it becomes clear that a place name has assumed this additional quality of a negative brand, It is somehow more difficult and more time-consuming to acquire the quality of a positive brand. It needs hard work and real assets, I would say. And in many cases, positive brands are transferred to other places as a main name of this other place or as a flattering byname or nickname of another place. We have several examples for this case. For instance, many Venices, many Veronas, many Florences in the world. These names have a very prominent image, a very positive image, and they are transferred to several other places. Positive brands can also become flattering bynames or flattering nicknames of other places, as it is with Amsterdam or Stockholm. They are called the Venice of the North sometimes. Or Dresden is called the Elbflorenz, Florence on River Elbe, due to architectonical similarities or a very prominent architectonical structure. Or Bucharest is, for instance, known as the Paris of the East because of its large boulevards and gardens like the Haussmann Paris. Or Tuscany is transferred to other regions with a similar character, hilly lands with vineyards and so on. There's a Saxon Tuscany, there's an Austrian Tuscany in Styria, for instance. Or Switzerland is also transferred to other places. Switzerland has image or is the name for a picturesque mountainous landscape, and other landscapes of this type receives this flattering nickname. In Saxony, for instance, in Bohemia and Moravia exist Saxonian Switzerland, and so on and so forth. Positively connotated place names are also transferred to commodities, becoming commercial names in this way. So, for instance, names of landscapes, cultural landscapes, of regions like Tyrol, like Dalmatia, for instance, are also applied to hotels, to restaurants, to music groups, to newspapers, and many other different commodities. Yes, this fascinating topic will be elaborated now by Sungjae Choo. He's a professor of geography at the Kyung Hee University in Seoul, in the Republic of Korea. And I extend a cordial welcome also to him at this occasion. Welcome, Sungjae, to our community here. And thank you also for being available at this time. It's 10 o'clock or later than 10 o'clock in the evening, so almost midnight. It's a kind of a midnight session for you, so to say. We know each other since 2006. We had a workshop, a common Korean-Austrian workshop on toponymy, of course, in Seoul at that time. And we cooperated ever since at various occasions. Most impressive, we were the C-name seminars organized by you and your predecessor and mentor, Ki-Sok Lee, in various places of the world, of course, in the Republic of Korea several times, but also in Sydney, in Vancouver, and Berlin, and so on. And Sungjae Choo is also a long-term member of the working group on exonyms of the United Nations group of experts on geographical names, ANGEGEN, and he contributed essentially to meetings of this working group and to its proceedings. Sungjae is also the convener of ANGEGEN's working group on evaluation and implementation, one of ANGEGEN's 9 working groups. And since 2019, he's also the vice chair, one of 2 vice chairs of ANGEGEN, and we will meet next 1 week, so in 2 weeks in New York for a next ANGEGEN session. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in person at this next occasion. As his most recent book, he published in 2018 a reader on people, places, and place names. I have here the cover page, perhaps you can see and read it, which appeared in this February in a 2nd edition. And its chapter 11 is devoted also to place names as brands. And on this very topic, he has also conducted a research project, and he made the first report on this research project last year at the IGU Centennial Congress in Paris. And today, our lecture today is another occasion to disseminate his findings of this research project. And I think we are very keen to hear more about it now. And after Sungjae's presentation, we will have certainly an opportunity for a short discussion, for some questions and for some comments. So Sungjae, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Peter, for your kind introduction of myself, and also a kind introduction of the place names research, looking at brands. And I am very glad, and I'm very much honored to be a speaker of ICOS online lecture series. Thank you again for having me. And I now share my screen. All right, I'm Sungjae Choo, or in Korean way, Choo Sungjae. and I am a professor of geography at Kyung Hee University in Seoul, Korea. My topic today is place names as brands. First, I would like to talk about how I became interested in this topic. I began my academic career as an economic geographer. In 2005, very luckily, I happened to attend a workshop organized by the working group on exonyms of the United Nations Group of Experts on Geographical Names, or UNGEGN, and had the fortune to meet a number of great figures like Peter Jordan. So it was 2005 that we met first time, 1 year earlier than 2005. And then my interest began to concentrate on the field of place names, geographical names, or toponymy. I was led to attend sessions and conferences of UNGEGN as a delegate of my country, and there, luckily again, became to know the field of onomastics and the academic group ICOS. I was invited to the ICOS conference in Barcelona in 2011 and joined the membership. As far as I know, I was the second member of ICOS from the Asian continent. A few years later, I was invited to Onoma, the journal, as a guest editor of the special edition titled Asian Onomastics. And I'm happy to see Olivia here, who passed two copies of this book in Vienna, 2019. In the extension of my research interests to toponymy, I always thought about how to connect names research to my first field, economic geography. At that moment, luckily again, I encountered the perspectives of critical toponymy, and as a part of it, the perspective of investigating toponymic branding, naming rights, and power relations involved in the value of names. I succeeded in recruiting bright students to work with this topic. So I'm here to speak on place names as brands. Sorry for the long introduction. Well, nowadays it is not difficult to see place marketing practices through names landmarks, like you see here. Roma, Sorrento, loves art with the figures of Robert De Niro and the famous actress. And then Naples in a graffiti. Savoca, the town of the Godfather, the movie. Split in Croatia, and exclamation mark. What is S? Is Sigulda, a suburban city of Riga, Latvia. Helsinki and Shanghai welcomes you. I am Amsterdam. I could not take better picture than this due to the people. And in Korea, the same. The Incheon, Haeundae, Seoul, Hwang, and Songdo with a cameo, and the Korean alphabet M, Z, Mu, Tsuhu, so it's Mancheonha, so it's the alphabet, the abbreviated alphabets, and the Korean script, and also with the Chinese letters. So this is what we see all over the world. And also we find this kind of marketing skill with a long name. You see the case of this town in Wales. The short name is like this, but long names are everywhere in town. And I evaluated it works. because when I visited the place, I saw a group of tourists, mostly from Australia, old people who like to see their ultimate hometown. And the long name does have this meaning. Yeah, I will not read this. So long name promotes the town to the people of all over the world. Yeah, place names as social constructs. This title was given for the 2016 conference held in Beijing. Probably Peter has his property right. And I got these four components: perception of human beings, cultural heritages of social groups, political expression of power groups, economic values of interest groups, four components of place names as social constructs. And this part is one of those four components, and all these four elements compose a real toponymic landscape. So this is my introduction of this topic. And what are the achievements? First, a conceptual framework, including creation, process of accumulation, and definition. I got this diagram inspired by Peter Jordan. So before and after, social groups like name givers, or users, or owners interact with a place by way of place name. When the interaction or relationship is strengthened on the right-hand side, then place identity is accumulated on the place, and the name receives more cultural and economic value. And then the brand value of place names. What is the definition? We may define this with the brand, the definition of brand used in the marketing field. So brand in the marketing is defined something like this: name, term, design, symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's goods or services as distinct from those of other sellers. So depending on this definition, we may define brand value of place names like this: economic value created by the process of a place name becoming a brand. So brand is defined in the marketing field. So then we find a typology of place names as brands. So I may propose these 5 types of place names as brands, but we may add one thing as what that Peter mentioned at the beginning of this lecture. So nickname, so flattering nickname, yeah, that could be added as a 6th type. But anyway, 5 types I'm proposing like this. First, a place name becomes a company name or product brand, like Corning, Montblanc, Amazon, etc. Second, a place name represents a product brand, like Boseong Green Tea is in Korean town producing very nice green tea, and Cheongsong Apple. And more generally known items are French wine, Swiss watch, Italy leather, etc. So these brands sometimes are protected by the regulation of geographical indication. Third, a place name turns into a common noun, like champagne or champagne, a common noun used as a common noun for sparkling wine, or eau de cologne, the water of cologne used for perfume. So this is a kind of common noun used by used by the place names. The fourth type will be a company name or product name, company name or product brand, which becomes a place name, like Toyota City in Japan, and Seoul's Perrier-Roubaix in the southern part of France. So Toyota Perrier became the place name. And fifth type will be the company name or product brand, which is adopted for urban facilities. And that becomes an urban name, like sports facilities, subway stations, etc. So I got a typology of place names as brands like this. So as I said, we may add one more that Peter suggesting. We find some specific aspects of place names as brands as differentiated from normal brands of commodities. First, unlike place identity is represented in its name, like Paris as a city of culture, art, tourism, like Seoul, long history of capital for more than 600 years, center of culture and economy, and a city surrounded by mountains, etc. Second, the place names as brands are combined with its specialized products like Swiss watch, French perfumes, and so many examples are there. And third specific aspect is that the place names as brands are used as a pronoun representing ideology and mentality. For example, Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, represents the communist regime, and Gwangju, a city in the southern part of Korea, is a symbol of democratization in Korea, as you see in the picture on the right hand side. And there could be contrasting images and values, like Gangnam in the place name of the southern Seoul. So Gangnam does have the image of luxury, wealth, brightness, abundance, high-end consumption, but it does also have dark images like extravagance, waste, snobbishness, crime, etc. So one place name could have contrasting images and values. And fifth, sometimes the place name as brands are created by artificially, sorry, by logo, symbol, or slogan. So you see, we all know the slogan of "I love New York," and it is evaluated that this logo, designed by Milton Glaser, enormously contributed to transferring the image of New York into a preferred, livable, and energetic city. There are a number of theoretical discussions on toponymic commodification and naming rights, as you see on the screen. Let me summarize a few crucial points. First, place names become commodities or commodified. Exchange value exceeding use value is formulated on place names as commodities. Place names as commodities are manifested by naming rights. Naming rights programs have emerged as a neoliberal urban policy idea. By being granted an exclusive naming right, name users appropriate profits that competitors cannot obtain. So it is equivalent to naming rent. The naming rights market operates very imperfectly as there exists limited demand and scarce supply. So these are some general findings from the theoretical works of these figures. We also see some case studies on naming rights. And these cases include names of sports stadium by Midway et al., subway station by Rose Redwood et al., street names, Karimi, and general urban toponyms by Light and Young, and some others also. So some points also are summarized here. The transfer of naming rights is a process in which a public territory transforms into a private space, which blurs the boundary between the public and the private. The private sometimes extends to general economic and political realms, like the Etihad Stadium in Manchester. So the name extends to the nearby streets, like Etihad Street, or the subway station, like Etihad subway station, or something like that. So the private turns into a kind of public names. Toponymic commodification should be understood in the geographical context of the place where the name is used, like the naming in Afghanistan in post-Taliban period, because in Afghanistan, the naming system was not so well equipped. So when the American forces came to Afghanistan, there was high probability to change all the names into the American style. So that is a kind of geographical context, and that should be understood in the toponymic commodification. Transacting naming rights may not be welcomed by local residents and even face strong resistance. And the local residents sometimes argue that the commodification cheapens the symbolic value of toponymic landscape. And this result was found in the Winnipeg, the city of Winnipeg, Canada, and very meaningful finding. So that is related to the last point, that the effect of toponymic commodification has not yet been verified, but many people are looking for the good positive side of toponymic commodification. Apart from toponymic commodification, also is used the term toponymic commercialization. And I understand commercialization gives more focus on the motivation and process in which a place name becomes a commodity. So commodification is understood as a trend of place name becoming an object of transaction. So commercialization is more geared to motivation and process. So Peter, you may have something to speak on this, this understanding. Anjegen has taken specific notes on commercialization as a counteracting force to geographical names as cultural heritage. So Anjegen adopted a resolution which recommends national toponymic authorities discourage the designation of geographical names that seek a commercial purpose. According to this resolution, each country adopts procedural regulations. Yeah, the coronavirus pandemic inspired me and my student, Mr. Kim Chano. I think he is here, to the other side of the toponymic brand, which is negative brand value. And we developed the concept of toponymic stigma. At the outbreak, it was called Wuhan pneumonia, Wuhan virus, or even China virus. But very shortly, WHO gave an official name, coronavirus disease 2019. It was to conform this regulation in 2015. So it's a guideline titled WHO Best Practices for Naming of New Human Infectious Disease. It regulates that disease names may not include geographic locations. So these names like Spanish flu, Rift Valley fever, Crimean Congo, hemorrhagic fever, Lyme disease, MERS. So these names were not appropriate. So the regulation was enacted in 2015. So after that, all the names, so the place names are not adopted to name the disease. But negative images of the place and its name are created anyway by this kind of accidental happenings, sometimes developed into stigma effect and even influence human behavior, like discouraging people to visit that place. So these negative images are reinforced through risk perception and risk communication. So these are the main keyword: toponymic stigma, negative images, risk perception, and risk communication. And my student Chan-ho found out that the Wuhan virus or Wuhan pneumonia had great impact on the tourists who were planning to go to China. So they decided to stop going to China, even to Wuhan, but also to other cities of China. So that is a big impact and the practical result of the negative images. Yeah, this diagram is proposed as a hypothesis of the formation of negative brand value. So negative brand. So negative identity is created radically by a kind of event, accident, disease, disaster, or disease, or gradually created by damaging facility, poverty, crime, or social disorder. And this negative identity is received by people with the process of risk perception. And in this perception, risk communication works through mass media or social media. And then the negative identity and risk perception is placed on the place and its name. So the area like sphere like this. In this sphere, place stigma and toponymic stigma are interacting with each other like this. Place stigmatizes toponym, so resulting stigmatized toponym, or toponym stigmatizes place, so resulting stigmatizing toponym. So we can we can call all this shaded area as the sphere of negative brand of a toponym. So this is what I have worked on for the last few years. And there are further issues to be explored. You may have already taken a hint from the last point of stigmatized toponym or stigmatizing toponym. we are not yet ensured whether the positive or negative value is created by place or created by place name. For example, in the case of brand value of Paris, is it of Paris? Is it the value of Paris? Or is it the value of the place, Paris as a place name? Theoretically, we can design 4 models, as you see here. So place, the value of place and the value of place name. So the 2 values are intersecting like this. Or the value of place is the same as the value of place name. So the place name is a part of the value of place. In contrast, place, the value of place can be a part of place name. So this question should be further answered with some empirical findings. So we are not yet ensured whether it is the value of the place or value of the place name. Second, measurement issue. My student Nicole Kim experimentally borrowed the concept of brand equity used in the marketing area. She defined brand equity of place names like this, as a set of values created by overall cognition and image of a place name, include 4 elements: awareness, evaluation of the quality, association, and loyalty. So these 4 components are derived from this definition, and she developed these 4 components into more measurable variables and questions of the survey, as you see here. So there's so small letters, and I would not like to read all these. And in this measurement, these factors on the right-hand side could work, are expected to be related, like demographic factors like gender, age, etc., social background, frequency of visit the place, and perception of the geographical boundary associated with the place name. So these factors could be related to the people's perception of values of each place name. She chose the name Gwanghwamun and Gangnam in Seoul for a case study, and conducted a survey to citizens of Seoul and surrounding areas. Yeah, as you see here, 5 components and 3 or 4 questions under each component. How much aware are you of this name? So Gangnam, Gwanghwamun. Do you evaluate the quality of this name? What are you? What is associated with the name? And do you have loyalty of the name? So these questions could be viewed as something very ambiguous, but there was no way to measure other than this. So you see some differences between these 2 names, Gwanghwamun and Gangnam. So Gwanghwamun is a name, it's a very representative name in the downtown Seoul. And Gangnam is the news center in the southern part of Seoul, so south of the river. So 2 representative names, one in the north and one in the south, but there are some differences found under these 4 components. So this is very experimental trial attempt to measure the value of place names, but we are not completely sure that this is right methodology. And one issue raised in the analysis was the boundary and scale matter. For example, the boundary of Gangnam as a vernacular is perceived very differently to various people. So all the perceptions of the spatial boundary covered by Gangnam is drawn here, but it could be centered in this part, but it could be extended up to this part. So this should be taken into account in investigating the value of place names. So the thing is that people have different boundary of the name, the boundary of the space that a place name designates. And with Chanho, we summarized some specific aspects of measuring negative brand. And as you see here, so toponymic stigma encompasses social, cultural, and political values, as well as economic values. So the components of measurement should be differentiated from those for measuring positive brand, positive value. Secondly, negative identity develops rapidly, and the path is relatively short. So it is a good sign to investigate. So easy to specify the cause of stigma. And that is also gives us the possibility to track the motivation for stigma relatively easily, because it is very rapid happening phenomena. So so it is also feasible to measure how strongly individuals or groups are affected. So Chanho did a case study of Wuhan, and he asked the tourists, so the potential tourists in Korea, how to react to the possible negative image or negative brand of Wuhan. And as I already mentioned, the third point, so the stigma effect diffuses beyond the feature the name nominates. So this hypothesis should be tested by investigating human perception on the name of various scales. So the Wuhan, China, or Fukushima, Japan, or some other cases should also be attempted. So lastly, I would say this. So in order to have more generalized findings, we need more case studies. So you are invited to this kind of exploration to the world of negative brand of place names. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. And this is all I like to speak this time. And I think we have some time, so I will be happy to receive questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sungjae, for this very impressive lecture. And I think it was a very systematic approach to this overall not easy topic. And it would need, of course, some reconsideration and rethinking to understand it completely. Let me just address 3 points you made. You mentioned the relation between social group and place is it intensified by place names. I think this is very much so. Place names support emotional ties. They activate emotional ties between people and their place. So if I'm reading or hearing when I'm in New York, the name of my hometown Hermagor, all the features of Hermagor, all the smells and sounds appear in my mind, so to say. This activates my emotional tie to my hometown. And this is utilized for creating brands, I think. This aspect, this emotional aspect of place names is activated. I think there are 3, commercial. The commercial use of place names is a kind of transanonymization, I think. It's a kind of applying the name of a place to a name of a place becomes a name of a commodity, so to say. Huh? So it's a kind of transanonymization. And I think there are 3 ways or 3 types of commercial place name use. One type is that the name of a place is applied to a commodity. It becomes a name of a commodity, of a hotel, of a restaurant or something. And then the other way around is that the name of an enterprise or of a company is applied to a geographical topic, a geographical feature. Like we had in Austria, for instance, that a mountain peak was named after a sausage producer, after a sausage producing enterprise company. And the third possibility, the third type is that a new name is invented for a certain geographical feature, like it is frequent in tourism. We have in Austria, for instance, the Skiwelt Amadee, the ski world Amadee. It reminds of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, of course. It's a tourist area in Salzburg, a skiing area in Salzburg, and a new name was invented for this ski to promote the skiing area, so to say. It's a touristic name, a new name. So these are the 3 types, I think. Yes, I think that the brand value of a name depends always on the place, not on the name, always on the place. So the value of the place is reflected by the brand value of the name. It is like with the prestige of languages, I think. And so we have languages of different prestige. Some languages have a higher prestige. Some languages have a lower prestige. And it's not the language which creates the prestige of the language. It's a population, it's a community speaking the language. If the community has prestige, if the community is powerful, if the community has economic and political importance, then also the language spoken by this community has some prestige or has higher prestige than the language of another community. So I think it is always, in my opinion, the place, or in this case, the community, which creates the prestige. Not the name is not in the prestige is not created by the name as such, but by the place. Yes. So I would like to open the floor for questions and comments now.
Peter, I'll start with a question.
Yes, please, Joseph, please.
I was really interested in your circle diagrams, where especially the one that the value of the place Paris or the name Paris, and Peter has just addressed that very very eloquently, I think. My question was more to the effect of what happens when there's a derivation of the name. For example, when you transfer through large shopping malls or airports, you see Paris oftentimes in terms of jewelry and fashion, but you also see the term Parisian, which is derived from Paris, but a slightly different usage. Would you include that as the commodification, providing additional value to the place name or to some other aspect of naming?
A very nice question. Yes, derivation of the name, like Paris, Parisien. Yeah, that could have different value, different nuance, and different symbolic meanings. So we may need to set up the kind of derived names as a separate brands. So could be developed into the continuing values like the Paris Parisien example. And yeah, that is also mentioned in a study of critical toponymies, that the name is just name, not including any connotation or something. If we see the Stalingrad Avenue in Paris, so that is just name, not connoting as Stalingrad, as we see in a city in Russia. So that should be a kind of geography, not history. So geography should be given more focus than history. So the already turned into a term. So that reminds me of the necessity to differentiate between a name and derived names and some other continuously developing names.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you both. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, please?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Please, I'd just like to ask where we place street names in all this. In certain parts of the world, we have streets named after cities. We have some other things, brands named after streets and all such things like that. Where do we place them in all this conversation?
This was difficult to understand now.
Sorry, I did not get.
Did you get it, Sungjae?
Okay.
No,
no, sorry.
I was talking about street names. Street names.
Street names. Yes.
Street names. For example, we can have in a city in Nigeria, for example, we have some streets that are named after cities. We have some streets named after brands. Maybe a company called Indomie. We have Indomie Street, something like that. What do we place them in all this conversation?
And
yes,
what is your question, dear colleague from Nigeria? What is your question? What would be your question now?
I said that where do we categorize street names? City names that are derived from street names. Where do we place them in all these categorizations?
Yes.
Yes. That could be. That should also be taken into account. The city name could be adopted as a street name. So, like Pennsylvania, Yeah, I saw a few in European countries, or probably in Nigeria or something. So in that case, where the country name is adopted as street names, how should we see that case? So that is, if the country name has a kind of brand value, then is it also transferred to the street name? I am afraid not, but that should also be studied, and very much related to the derived names. So there's another type of, so that is a kind of, I name it as a transplanted name. So the one name is transplanted to other feature names. So in that case, how is the brand value is transferred from the original name to another. So that is a topic to be studied further. Thank you.
Sungjae, if I may mention, I think also with street names, the brand value is in a way transferred. Huh? So if you use Stalingrad Street in some other city, of course the brand value of Stalingrad is still in this name. If you use this name as a part of another name, so to say, it is still in this name, I think. So I would not say that the brand value of this other name is not transferred to a street name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So brand value connotation beyond the denotation function, and also symbolism. So we need to be precise.
Yes.
In
and I think
analyzing.
It also happens that some streets are named for this very purpose, after a prestigious other city or after a prestigious event or something like that. So this is even sometimes a reason why a certain street name is applied, because it has a certain meaning, a certain value, a certain brand value. So,
and raised.
Any other questions? Yes.
Helen.
Yep.
Helen, yes, Helen.
Thank you, Sungjae. Excuse me. Just adding to the comments of Peter and Joseph about the place being what people recall and it being more important than the name itself. Certainly, I don't think anybody thinks about New York as the name particularly. They think about the activity there and reminds them of the perception of New York. And I was just thinking about Paris. We have in Canada a Paris in Ontario. And I'm sure nobody thinks of, oh, Paris, Ontario, isn't that marvelous? It's a small place on a small river and certainly doesn't have the elegance and charm of Paris in France. So again, that sort of supports it's the place rather than the name itself. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, names of stadiums and thinking of them as place names or names of objects anyway. Depending who the sponsor is, the name may change fairly frequently. And I wonder if you've looked at any sort of effects of this, whether, you know, a company that has its name associated for a long time with a stadium, and as you said, perhaps the associated street nearby or an underground station or something like that, what the difference in effect is of a stadium where the name changes perhaps every few years, depending who the sponsor is. I don't know if you've looked at that sort of thing, and whether the old name kind of lingers on. We certainly have an example in Ottawa of a hockey stadium, and originally they were called the Ottawa Senators, or still are the Senators, and we do have the Senators Way as a street nearby, but you know, the stadium no longer carries that name. It's had a variety of supporters or sponsors, and the name has changed quite frequently. So I just wonder what happens, like you mentioned the Etihad Stadium in Manchester. Now, if they've got associated features with that, what happens if the name of the stadium changes? Do those others likely stay on, or what happens with them? And perhaps whether people accept it or not is rather dependent on either the reputation of the company or perhaps the name, the sound of the name. We have a junior hockey stadium just across the river here from Ottawa, which is now called the Slush Puppy Stadium, which is really rather a peculiar name for a stadium, but it's again after the name of a company. But I'm not sure that people sort of think that's rather a silly name for a stadium, but it's the sponsor's name. So again, perhaps depending on the reputation of the company or the name it has, perhaps there's an effect here too. Anyway, there's just thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for your comment and question and thought. Yes, that is a problem. That is a case that the private, the sphere of private comes into the sphere of public. So when the private sector, when the private changes, like the sponsorship of the stadium, then what about the names in the nearby facilities, nearby streets or something? So that is not yet proven in detail in the case studies. But in the Manchester case, Etihad sponsor Etihad, the air company, as a sponsor, is strong enough and steady enough that the street name has come from that company, and also the subway stations. But so nobody knows what happens in the future when Etihad withdraw its sponsorship to the stadium. But in that, as a newly constructed facilities, then they will not have much difficulty in accepting the sponsor name. But when the facility or the feature is old enough, then the residents do not like the kind of sponsor name coming into their names. So all those factors should be considered in naming facilities or features, but I do not have more knowledge than that. But thank you for the raise of questions, and Helen, and how to cope with that situation. And so yeah, that is the current capitalist way of sponsors and naming the urban facilities.
Yes, thank you, Sungjae. Ingvild has raised her hand. Please.
Yes, thank you for your speech, Sungjae. I'm wondering what kind of theory and methods you use in this case studies.
Yes, the brand value, measuring brand value is very new area in toponymic research or geography research. So I and my student co-worker did not have any choice but to depend on the former already developed methodologies in the marketing science. So we adopted the concept from that field and transformed into the nature of place names. but it is not yet completed, so should be amended, revised, and or even replaced with something new framework. So should need more work. And regarding theory, I don't know what we can call as theory in this field, but there are many empirical studies in the field of critical toponymy on the power relations or the conflicts in names. So we now normally adopt a kind of inductive method to generalize from those empirical studies. So we need
you are not using any theory from geographical studies or geographic or cultural geographic place critical theories on place, space and place.
The theories suggested that the field of cultural geography, like placeness or placelessness, or place identity, or place symbolism. So those concepts are borrowed from the field of cultural geography. I'm not sure that we can call that as a kind of theoretical framework, but I depend on those concepts for my research. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sungjae. If I may add, I think there's this famous works of Yifu Tuan on topophilia, which form the basics, I think, for most of our studies on place names in critical toponomastics. So, any other question or comment?
Yeah, one question from Indonesian colleague.
Yes.
Palace.
Paris, yes. Do we see a question, Sungjae?
Yeah, from the chat box.
Yes, of course, yes. I should have looked into the chat function.
Aha. So the
yes, the colleague from Indonesia says, "Hello, I'm Arum Yajanti from Indonesia. Here in Yogyakarta, there are a lot of hamlet names about palace things. For example, Siliran, assistant of the king who has a job to turn on and off the lights, a suffix for place. So Silurian means a place that long time ago is a place for assistant of the king who has a job to turn on and off the light. My question, are these phenomena happening in the other countries that have palace or near to palace or something?
Yeah, I think this is question to all the participants.
Yes, yes.
So thank you, Nigerian colleague.
And somebody answers, and the Nigerian colleague answers, here is Nigeria. I'm not aware of such occurring. The closest is a market or a mosque being named after the king. In Yoruba, for instance, king means Oba, while market means Oya. Thus, the town's central market is called Oya Oba. So we have a response. So this is all from the chat, I think. So any other question? We are anyway already exhausted with our time. And I would like to thank you, Sungjae, once again for this very impressive lecture, wonderful lecture, and also for being available for this discussion now. And at this very late hour in Seoul, it's now already near to midnight, exactly. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon in New York in the Angeng session. And thank you all for attending this lecture and for your contributions also to the discussion. Thank you very, very much. Goodbye and see you with the next ICOS lecture. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.